Hello, this is your State Senator Len Suzio speaking to you from the middle of Senate District number 13. I'm here in Middlefield at Powder Ridge. One of the good things about being a state senator is you get to meet a lot of very interesting people, a lot of dynamic people. And today I'm going to be interviewing one of the most interesting people I've met in my tenure as a state senator. I'm going to meet someone that people refer to as an entrepreneur, a guy who makes things happen. I'm speaking to Sean Hayes, who's the CEO of Powder Ridge, where we are today for this interview. And before I just start asking Sean some questions and talking to him about his experience, I just want to say that Connecticut, we all know, is in a dire financial situation right now. And the only way we're going to really work our way out of this is if we can get our economy growing again and get the business community thriving again. And most people don't know this, but when you think about the business community, most people think about Aetna, General Electric, the big companies. But in Connecticut, there's almost 89,000 businesses registered to do business in Connecticut, and 99.2% of them employ fewer than 100 people. And the entrepreneurs, those who run the 99.2%, employ more than half the people in Connecticut. So if we're going to get Connecticut going again, we really need entrepreneurs like Sean Hayes to make things happen. And that is a definition of what an entrepreneur is, someone who makes things happen. Sean, it's good to have you here today for the interview.
My pleasure, B. I'm glad you're here.
Well, we'll get started in this interview. I got a lot of questions I want to ask you.
Go ahead.
So tell me, how did you end up being an entrepreneur, someone who starts his own business as opposed to going and working for some big bureaucratic organization somewhere?
Well, we all start somewhere. So I started in corporate America for 20 years. I worked my way up through the ranks in corporate America, doing mergers, acquisitions, the whole traditional corporate America. And I ended up doing a lot of turnaround management.
Okay.
And that's what really intrigued me. How can you turn companies around? Why are they failing? And it was a niche I found in my ability to identify industry issues, company issues, and get companies back on track. And in that process, my brother Ed came to me and said, look, I want to start this new business proposition where we're doing a scuba diving park, and I got the great opportunity in Portland, Connecticut. So we looked at it, and we decided in the long term, through that experience in turnaround management, Ed, it's not going to work. You don't have a big enough market. But I, and my other brother Frank, sat, brainstormed, and came up with what we called an adventure sports park. And that was the beginning of everything you see here today. It was three brothers working and bringing back to its community what we viewed as a place for our kids to go out and be kids again in a safe environment. So go jump off a cliff,
Really?
believe it or not.
Go jump in a lake.
That's right, and that's where it started. And from there, we worked with the municipality that had a distressed piece of property, brought it back to life under a new business proposition, and I would say at that time, look, I would say 4% of the community believed we could do what we said we could do. But they gave us the shot. And it worked.
So tell us, just for the audience, you have two operations really, right? You have two different locations. What are they? Where are they?
We have Brownstone Exploration and Discovery Park in Portland, Connecticut. It's an outdoor adventure sports facility based out of a flooded quarry. 27 acres of water, jump off cliffs, go scuba diving, rock climbing, wakeboarding, all kinds of outdoor activities for the kid. And we've grown it over the last 11 years to be over 100,000 visitors a year.
Wow.
Not bad. We sort of parlayed that, rolled the dice with our investment group now. We have various investors that have taken the risk with us, and we now came into Powder Ridge Mountain Park here in Middlefield. It was a closed, distressed, very distressed property that had a great history with it. So again, we looked at the industry, what was wrong with it, and we knew it couldn't be just a winter facility. We knew we had to take it and make it an adventure sports, mountain-based, year-round. And that's what we've done over the last 5 years. I think we're now coming out of it in a very successful environment where we are offering downhill mountain biking, we are skiing 12 months a year with our synthetic snow, and we're doing our winter sports and wedding and banquet activities in this beautiful facility, and it's finally turning the corner and proving that, look, if you reevaluate things and you have the opportunity within your community to really be successful and get the support from your community, your government, and your state, you can make this happen. And that's what we've done.
Well, I'd like you to talk a little bit about that experience you've had with municipal leaders and then with state folks, particularly the State Department of Economic Development. Share with the audience a little bit of your experience working with the government officials to make things happen.
You know, it's a win-win proposition. What I always go into in business is it has to be fair to both sides. So when we went in and negotiated the contract with the local municipalities, in both cases, they were open to a true business environment. Look, let businesses do what businesses do well. That's run companies, okay? Take your distressed property, we'll give you a lease, and we arranged a lease environment with the town of Portland. And in this case, over in Middlefield, we did purchase the property, but it was on a basis of most of our capital went to improving the property. So we did that. On the state level, in both businesses, we have relied on DECD. We've successfully, sold the proposition to the state that, look, tourism is great for this state.
Right.
We're sitting between two of the largest markets in the world. We're sitting in an environment here where we have, 23 million people within a 90-mile radius. And both of these businesses have the potential of pulling that population into Connecticut, generating business not only for us, but the local restaurants, gas stations, convenience stores, you name it. I think everyone has benefited from what we're doing. DECD has been very good for us. I think, if you look at our brownstone record, we've paid back the loans we've taken. So it's not only good for us, it's good for the state. It proves and employs. We have moved from originally with brownstone, I think we started with 5 employees, okay? On a full-time equivalent basis, it's probably 75 year-round employees. At our peak in the season, we're 250 employees. Yes, they're seasonal jobs, but they're great jobs for young America. We employ 16 to 25-year-olds, those first jobs, giving them the experience. It's a little painful for us managing, but we get through it and we give those kids an opportunity. Over here at Powder Ridge, in a winter season, we're peaking out at 200 employees.
Wow.
So it is happening. It can be successful as long as the banks, the local government, and the DECD truly work together. And don't forget, as you brought up, the smaller businesses, those medium-sized businesses, because that's what employs America.
Right. By the way, folks, entrepreneurs are different in a lot of ways. It's not only what they say, but it's how they say it. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's an enthusiasm and an excitement in Sean's voice that you recognize in entrepreneurs that you're not going to get in the normal corporate world. That's a hallmark, I think, of entrepreneurs. There's just this zest, this enthusiasm to get into things and make things happen.
It takes a passion to truly be successful in a standalone business and drive. You have to have the drive, the passion, and the ability not to give up. Because look, there's been 1,000 reasons and thousands of obstacles thrown at us in all this process. And I'm not saying it's easy. We've had our struggles with the local municipalities. We've had our struggles with the state. We've had struggles with our local community. But, look, you can't give up. If you believe in something and you have the drive to do it, that's what's going to make you successful.
Right. So maybe could you share with us a little bit, some more details, like what kind of financial assistance did you get from the state, for example? Have you gotten DECD's involved, the Department of Economic and Community Development? What have they done to help you out to make things happen here and over in Portland? Sure.
Well, it started back in Portland. Our first loan, when we finally figured out the business was going to be successful, to really take that next step, development step, to really get the volume up, we went to the Middlesex Revitalization Commission, which was a local branch of the DECD. So they got their funding from DECD, and we took a $300,000 loan out to really bump Brownstone to the next level. And that's where you saw it move. In 2008, 2009, it went from 25,000 customers a year, bumped to 80. And that's what gave us the ability, and it took our employees from 50 employees on a seasonal basis to 250. So it worked for both. Over here in Middlefield, we couldn't make the economics work. Despite some of the community thinking that the town sold us this property so cheap, it was because it required in a massive amount of capital to go into to restore the property. They had a DECD approved $500,000 grant if a company came in and invested at least a certain millions of dollars in improving the land as a ski area. And it was that grant of $500,000 that changed the economics, that drove us to say, yes, we can turn this thing around with that money. Was it enough? No, we continued to evolve. We now have this facility we're sitting in, which is a beautiful facility for banquets, weddings. We're now doing weddings. We're sold out for next September, October, and beginning of November. We're already sold out for mountaintop weddings.
Awesome.
What gave us that ability was an additional loan and grant directly through DECD when they recognized the next level of expansion for Powder Ridge. And it paid off. It gave us the ability to finish out the build out of a restaurant and lodge that can accommodate up to 450 people.
That's pretty impressive. Sean, I'm going to take advantage of you and pick your brain for a second, and we're going to put this on the record, but
No.
What can government do here in Connecticut to make it more appealing to entrepreneurs like yourself? Because I believe we're not going to recover from the devastating downturn we're in right now. The budget's in another deficit again. We've got to get the economy kickstarted, and I believe that entrepreneurs and small businesses are the key to that. So if you were to give out some advice to the governor or the next governor, what 2 or 3 or 4 things would you recommend would be helpful to the...
Well, I think it's tax breaks to small businesses. I mean, really what's driving employment, what helps the economy the most? Employees, more employment, and who's employing them? Us small businesses. We're out there struggling every day to make payroll. We're out there struggling to continue to develop our property. So tax breaks for employees, tax breaks in availability of capital programs to take the next phase. There's startup dollars, and I think some of those startup dollars are out there, and there's opportunities out there, but it's that next step. How do you take a company and give capital to somebody that has some debt structure out there, has some equity, but needs to take it to the next level? A flexible program working with the banking industry, if it has to be, and really make that happen. It's also, guys, it's programs with local municipalities, because you can't just get it from one entity. It's the regulatory environments that we struggle through, and you can go through our history. We struggle through regulatory environments that are so restrictive in the state of Connecticut, between P&Z, local building, all of these codes and requirements that add hundreds of thousands of dollars to somebody that's struggling to employ people and build a business is almost too burdensome to make it happen. I mean, it's painful.
Yeah, and I've heard that time and again too. It's not just the tax climate, but it's the regulatory climate.
Absolutely.
Because years ago, I had experience with the Small Business Administration. You and I were talking before we started, and I remember I was initially anxious about that because I thought I was going to deal with this vast bureaucracy. It would never get anything done. But I found out that as I got to know them, and they got to know me, they came up with the can-do attitude. A funny quick story, one of my good friends who was a lawyer that wrote the laws involving economic development, he said, "Len, did you ever hear of the Law of Bureaucratic Contradiction?" I said, "What the heck is the Law of Bureaucratic Contradiction?" He said, "Well, for every bureaucratic regulation that says you can't do something. There's one that says you can. You just got to get the regulator or the bureaucrat looking at the right regulation.
And it all comes down to a lot of the things that we ran into is how you interpret things. And that's
Right.
exactly it. I mean, regulations are regulations, and people just think it's that simple. It's black and white.
Right.
No, it's not. It's how somebody reads that. The thing that I think would drive DECD, the SBA are great organizations. They give us the ability and access to capital that we may not have without them. But again, how burdensome is it to get your applications in, to get that paperwork? How time consuming is it to go through those processes? Simplify. I mean,
Simplify. Okay, I like that.
simplify. There's a lot of paperwork and time that makes it so hard for a business like me that's trying to run a business to go through that. It's too painful to even get the access to that kind of capital. So if there's a big thing, simplify.
Okay, so now we've talked about some tax relief, some simplification of the regulations, and what about economic or financial assistance? I mean, again, you've cooperated, worked with DECD. What kind of loans and things do they make available? Did they make available to you? I mean, are they long-term, short-term? Are they working capital? What kind of loans are they?
It really varies. I mean, when we looked at ours, the last Powder Ridge one to do this lodge, it was a shorter term. It was a contribution of, okay, we had to put up a good chunk of the money, and they would do, a portion of it. And a very small portion was listed as a grant as long as we met certain employment criteria.
Right.
And that's a great program. And the rest of it was a loan basis over a low interest loan, which helped and gave us the ability to get the build out done until the revenues came in. So that worked. The SBA loan was our big chunk on Powder Ridge. Powder Ridge did almost a $3 million loan through the SBA. There wasn't a bank in the world that would have taken on what they considered a seasonal business,
Right.
even though I tried to convince them it wasn't, okay, without the support and guarantee that the SBA program gave them.
Right.
And that's what worked most effectively.
Well, Sean, we're coming at the end of the interview right
Oh,
now.
I'm not done yet.
You and I are just getting warmed up. We'll take an ad and then we'll go back now. I just want to say on behalf of the people in the 13th District that we really do appreciate it when an entrepreneur like you is willing to stick their neck out and to create a new opportunity economically and otherwise. And it's great for the community, not only in terms of economics and employment, but also it's a kind of a fun place to go to. It's
right.
entertaining and all. And we need more people in the entrepreneurial community to step forward like you. And I just want to say thank you for doing what you do. We wish you the best of luck. And we hope that you'll continue to grow and expand. Maybe I'll be back here next year when you get your new synthetic snow on top of what you've already got.
I look forward to it. Len, we appreciate your support even from the very beginning, way back when we started this project. So thank you.
And thank you, folks, for listening in today. We'll be doing more interviews with more interesting people around the district. And thank you for listening today. This is Len Suzio, State Senator for District 13, signing off.